Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this very exciting evening. This is our first Voices of McKellar. First Q&A, hopefully first of many. So, I will talk louder, which I should have experienced as the seventh of 8 children, so I will do my best. So, first of all, I'm Sheila Hogan. I am the president of Voices of McKellar. I'd like to begin by firstly acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet tonight, and for whom sovereignty has never seen. I live on the land of the Garigal clan, of the Guringai people, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So for those of you who don't know Voices of McKellar, we're a grassroots community organization based here in the Northern Beaches, originally established to provide a forum for community voices to be heard, respected, and counted. We are non-partisan. We are not aligned to any political party, individual candidate, or representative. Our aim is to encourage increased community participation in our democracy, and to encourage the highest standard of political representation. As such, we are very pleased to be hosting a Q&A tonight with our MP, Dr. Scamps. On behalf of Voices of McKellar, I'd like to express our genuine respect and gratitude to Sophie for accepting our invitation to participate. I'd also like to thank all of you for taking time out of your personal lives to be here tonight and to basically be participating in our democracy. Thank you also for those who made some donations for the evening. It's very much appreciated because we are not-for-profit and we're doing things. So, with further gratitude, I'm pleased to hand over to Wendy Harmer, our moderator for the evening. As I'm sure you all know, Wendy is a Northern Beaches local and nationally acclaimed TV and radio celebrity, comedian, journalist, playwright, and author. Thank you so much, Wendy. If you'd like to join us on stage, and so we'd like to take a seat.
Right, sorry, they're just a little bit of a glitch, folks. Welcome along, phones off. Okay, that's the reminder. What we're going to do, I just give our writing instructions, everyone their writing instructions before we begin. As we said, I'm Wendy Harmer, lovely to be here. I guess the rules are tonight we're going to be listening to each other, we're going to be respecting each other, and no shouting and carrying on, I hope. And but you never know, that's democracy as well. Sophie, of course, as you know, won last May. She made her, which made her the first elected independent MP in this seat for 73 years. And I'm going to join you there, Sophie, because we were having a little chat about where we were tonight that you won. Now, the funny thing is about this is that I had been writing a few articles about for Crikey magazine online, and maybe you know Crikey. And I said to the bosses, Crikey, I said, well, I'll cover the seat of McKellar. And they were like, really? Where's that? Why should anyone care? And the more it sort of went along, and I kept writing these articles saying, I think you should keep your eye on McKellar. Yeah, really, can you write? No, I think you should keep your eye on McKellar. And what happened, of course, on the night when we were sitting there in the room at Pittwater, you were the first independent to be elected. And when we got talking about that, you had a bit of a tear in your eye, didn't you?
I did, and I do now. I do now because it was extraordinarily emotional the highs and lows of that whole thing, but so many people had said along the way, goodness, you know, I don't think you're getting enough from the national media, you know, maybe we, and I just said, it doesn't matter what's going on in the national media, you should see what's happening on the ground, because people in this community are so passionate, and it was the community that made it happen. So it was extraordinary. At that moment,
You've got to tell this story. Come on, it's a little bit of behind the scenes.
well, we had, sorry, is that, my communications manager had managed to extract 3 of us out of the big room where the party was going on. I think I could hardly speak and my feet were so sore, and so managed to get me, Anyo, and Jackie, campaign manager Anyo, who'd been with me the whole way, out of the room and said, I've got the SBS, I've got, I think, the ABC, I've got Sky, Channel 9, all ringing and saying, are you ready to call them? I said, well, I don't know, I haven't seen the TV, how am I supposed to know? And the next thing we knew, we were sort of in this room and he's going, I think you've got it. But we were watching on TV and you could see Anthony Green looking very confused. And then the next thing we just heard this almighty roar from back in the room. And we just ran in there. Oh, it was extraordinary. No, but it was just such a moment to show that, you know, this community, we do absolutely deserve to be heard, 100%, and we got together and we made it happen. And I have to say, it didn't happen because I stuck my hand up and said, follow me, nothing like that. It happened because we tapped into a sentiment that was felt very broadly across this community, and that was we actually deserve to have our voices heard, we deserve to be listened to, and we deserve to be genuinely represented. So it's your job to hold me to account, and I guess that's why we're here tonight. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
You also said to me earlier there that when this idea for Voices of McKellar to have a Q&A tonight, you didn't think it would be you sitting in that chair.
I thought it was a great idea. I thought, oh, that's really good for democracy. I was just driving here going, oh, who thought of this?
Oh, very funny. Okay, so there you are. I think probably people know your story by now, that you're an athlete and you're a mum of 3 teenagers. We do not know how you do it all. We're in awe of you. But let's just ask. I'm going to give you, how many words will I give you here? 3 words to sum up your overall impressions of going to Canberra and sitting in the big house. 3 words. It comes to the top of mind.
Well, somebody asked me that in the street, but they only gave me 1 word. My first word was positive, because I do think that the country has turned 180 degrees. I do think that, you know, a large slice of the population stood up and made sure their voices were heard this time, and I do think we've changed. We're heading in a different direction. There's a different discourse. There's, you know, we still have a long way to go, but we are heading in a different direction, and I think we can start, you know, hold our heads up high in the direction that we're going. So positive is one. I think in Canberra, I do think, look at this, is hard.
No, because I would have said the second one would probably be shell shock or a fall. Or
No, shell shocked is a good one. I'll take that. I did think that it was very like, I was saying, oh, look at, I've had experience in this, because I've been here and done this before as an intern, as a junior doctor. You're thrown out of, you know, even I was at Sydney University and it was a very theoretical course. You're suddenly in there, it's very practical, in a huge building, you've got buzzers going off, it's emergencies, and you are shell-shocked. There's a huge amount of stress, and there's, you know, matters that are, well, life and death in that situation, not so much in Canberra, but very important decisions, and you've got to be on the whole time, and you're up, you can't say I'm too tired to do this.
And what about as far as learning procedure and so forth goes? Has that been, how's that been?
Learning on your feet, and we had a new team, so everyone has been extraordinary, but also even just setting up the office. Like, you win the election and people are calling the next day, there's no office, there's no staff, people didn't have passports. You know, there were major issues already going on, so it has been an incredible feat for the, you know, for Anyo and Peter and everyone in the office who got up and got going. And I keep saying it's incredible because there's so many flowers and chocolates that come in through that front door for people who are thankful that, you know, they've called in and there's somebody on the end of the line who's actually trying to help them. So none of those flowers and chocolates are for me, they're for the people in the staff and the volunteers, so I can't thank them enough.
Let's talk about the people that you're dealing with. You are dealing with a huge crossbench, aren't you? And is it the largest in Australian parliamentary history?
Yes.
All right. Just give us a breakdown of the flavour of that crossbench and who you are. you've got some interesting characters there, but who you tend to speak with. You all get together. You break up. How does that work?
Look, it is absolutely incredible. I do think that the people that are on that crossbench are honestly remarkable, and the thing that's remarkable about them is that they're not there for their own personal ambition. They are there, I think, genuinely for their communities, and I just think they're incredible. And I keep saying they have this rod, you can just tell they have this rod of integrity, this unyielding core of integrity, and you can just see they are gunning for it. They have this long-term vision, and the vision is about how we can build a better Australia, not about their own personal ambition. But of course I hang with the teals, which is an easy word to say, but it's really about community independence. But there was already some incredible community independence that we really, you know, followed in their footsteps, and one who's not there anymore, of course, is Cathy McGowan, but Helen Haynes is still there. And Helen Haynes, actually, Monique Ryan, for Christmas presents for all of us, got t-shirts made up and gave them to us. There's no teal left, but it was, what would Helen do? Because she just garners so much respect, and she acts in such a respectful way that we all sort of look to her and say, you know, that's how we want to be. We want to work in a really collaborative, constructive way, in a really respectful way. So she's so lovely. She's seconding my bill. You'll hear about that on Monday. Zali, of course, is incredible. She is just an absolute powerhouse, and you know, knows the ropes as well. And then you've got people like Andrew Wilkie and Rebecca Sharkey, who have been there for a long while, fighting for their communities. And even, I've got to say, Bob Hatter. Like, I've got a lot of respect for him because he is standing up. He's doing what he thinks is right for his community. And he has stood with us a number of times. You know, he's not aligned. He stands up for his community. And he's stood with us, you know, the other crossbenchers, a number of times on issues of integrity, on the National Anti-Corruption Commission, on other whistleblower, you know, on a number of things. And I think, well, good on you for standing up.
One of the things that I love about this, you know, revolution that we're watching is, I think that it has been such a cynical take for so long that all politicians are in for themselves, they're no good, get rid of a lot of them. That has been so corrosive for democracy, I think. And so what you're saying there, and I happen to agree with you that, you know, most people there, whether you agree with them or not, do have some kind of, you know, some kind of vision. It's a long way, it's a roundabout way to go if you want to be a celebrity, don't you think? I mean, if you want to be rich and famous, it's a really long way to go about it. You know, you'd be better on a reality show.
I don't know, I'd probably get kicked off early.
So, tell us about some of the, you know, the highlights and the lowlights that you've experienced in what, 200 days?
Okay, and I would say as well, just on your comment about it being corrosive, that we think all politicians are corrupt. I mean, I am working hard to build integrity into our democratic system, of course, but I did feel a little bit bad when I first got down there and started meeting people personally, going, oh, actually, they're really nice people.
I hope I wasn't out of line with that whole corrupt bastard thing.
You're quite nice, but, you know, yeah, so top highs and lows of the first 200 days. Look, the highs, obviously, one of them would have to be when the National Anti-Corruption Commission passed. That was just enormous. thank you to all of you who spoke up and made integrity such an important issue at the last election, because really the government has to respond when the population demands it. So really the Australian population was demanding this. So this is what, when Wendy said we need you all to be a part of this democracy, it's so important that people do speak up. Is it still working? No, I can speak loudly. Hello? And I'll say as well that was the culmination of years and years of work as well. So, you know, I blew in at the end there, but thanks to you, you know, we really, because you can sort of, it was put off and put off and put off year after year, that you had Cathy McGowan, you had Andrew Wilkie, you had the Greens, you had a number of people fighting for this for a very long while. But it is about, and people say, what's the strength of an independent? And the strength of an independent is really doing what neither of the big parties will do, and that is shine a light on the issues that they're not touching. Of course, there should always have been a federal anti-corruption commission or integrity commission, and it was appalling to most of us that it didn't exist, and shocking actually. So the job of an independent is to shine a spotlight on important issues and keep the media spotlight on it and inform the public discourse and get people talking about it, get it in the media, so it becomes a wave of change that finally crashes when it happens, and everyone in this country is involved in that. So again, thank you.
Well, I guess one of the things that we want to talk about tonight, and what this event is about, is just how easy or otherwise, or how difficult it might be. You get to the low light, by the way, we might save that up.
No, cutting the staff. Because it's, can I just say, it is actually very difficult. It is a lot of work, and I keep looking at Georgia and saying, oh my goodness, you poor thing, I need at least two of you, because we've got to cover off so many things. Even just thinking about the superannuation changes that have come in, you know, that's just sort of flipped on us while we're already at full capacity. So yeah, and I think it was a way, because I'll just say this, is that I think the independents were very effective in the last term. You had Zali, who was working hard non-stop on climate. We've got a climate target now for 2030. We had Helen Haynes talking non-stop about integrity. We now have a National Integrity Commission. So they're very, very effective at getting media spotlight and to inform the public debate. And I think that the government understood that, and they wanted more control of the agenda. So that's one of the things about cutting the staff, was controlling the agenda somewhat. So, but anyway, but having said that, we'll come on to it. They have been collaborating, so I don't want to be too bad.
I was going to say that one of the things, of course, as I said, that this night is about, is just how you are able to take community concerns and then turn them into real action. Now that, obviously, because you've got a big electorate, you know, and a lot of people with a lot of different points of view, that is a huge thing to overcome. How do you and your team go about that? You know, as well as nights like this, obviously, that's one great step.
Well, this is part of what we're doing, and we have a I guess a cycle, and it did start with the voices. It did really start with listening. I think when the voices was established, the idea was, well, if we want to be genuinely represented, then we absolutely have to start with listening. I don't think there was a well-formed idea that there would be a candidate running or anything, but we just thought, we need to gather that information. We need to have robust information so that whoever the candidates are in the election, we can give them this and say, we have spoken to this many people. This is what is important to this election. What are you going to do about it? And so it started with that. So really the most important key of being community independent is trying to listen. And like you say, how do we do that? And I think that the voices of McKellar's role is incredibly important. So anyone who would like, anyone who would like to, because, I mean, I know that your role is to hold me to account and to make sure that I'm listening to the community and all that type of thing. So I think that role is incredibly important. And then you had another report which you gave to me and were able to feed back to me. But apart from that, we did the big survey. We're trying to do it in all sorts of different ways so that we get across the whole election and we reach all sorts of different people. And of course it is hard, but we did the survey recently, and the results are coming out, I think, this week.
Can you give us a little bit of a heads up on that? Tomorrow? Okay, sneak preview. Can we get a sneak preview, or what are we... Oh, you have them over there? Well, perhaps you can tell us what's in it. In that case.
Look, it's similar. Yeah, it's similar to what we've been hearing all the way along. Is that people very much before the election, during the election, and now after the election, is people really the most important issue to people, even despite the cost of living pressures that we're all under, is people want strong action on climate change because it's causing a lot of anxiety there. And then we also want to protect our natural environment. Integrity is a massive issue for people. I think that was a surprise to a lot of people saying, is integrity really a major issue? Yes. We keep hearing it's bumping up right on, right next to climate change, and it's still important. And of course, cost of living. And
well, I think I've got them here. Let's just go through them. The top 3 issues in the national sphere: 1, climate change; 2, environmental protection; 3, integrity and tackling corruption. And the top 3 locals issues are protecting our local environment, hospitals and health services, and 3, overdevelopment. These are very, very difficult things to balance.
I can't wait to get one of the state independents in as well. They can cover off the state issues.
Yes, that's right. Yes, well, these are all, really big competing ideas. I guess one of the tough things for you, Sophie, must be that when you're out and about in the electorate here, that people probably don't often understand that you're not from the council and you're not from the state government, that you're dealing with local issues, and yes, you would help out with the bins if you probably and the parking stickers, but that is not your gig. Is that something that you come up against?
Yes, definitely, but I think that the staff in the office are very good at helping people, point people where they can get that. So we don't always say, no, that's not our problem. We're there to do what we can for the community, and so these guys have got all the resources. They know where to direct people to get the best results and answers as well. So even if it's not a federal issue, that's okay. And also, I am because I am dealing with state issues as well. I am talking to the hospital, and I am talking about health. I am talking about Wakers Parkway. I am talking about development and Lizard Rock, because these things are very important to this community, and I'm here to represent the community. Whatever I can do as well, and give support to people in the community and to state members or whatever, that is also my role. But we do. I mean, I never got back to how we're trying to listen to you all, and I might just talk briefly about that if I can. Is we're trying to hear from you, hear from the community in any way we possibly can. So if anyone has any really good ideas, we would love to hear them as well. So we've got the surveys, we're doing pop-up, what we're calling pop-up politics. So I will advertise for a couple of weeks, posters in shops to let people know that I'll be there to ask, people can drop by and ask questions if that's what they want to do. We're holding Zoom sessions after, we've had a few parliamentary sitting weeks, just so I can update people about all the legislation that's coming in, how I've been voting, that type of thing, what I've been focusing on, have I introduced anything. So there are ways to update, but we would love people to sign up for the newsletter as well. There's so much information on that, and actually just follow on socials as well, because there's a lot that comes out every day in issues, so you get a really good idea of what I'm trying to do to represent you. And you can also get in touch. You can call the office as well and feedback and write letters. What else, guys? We've got community engagement here.
Well, that's well, we probably get into that. Any questions that we don't get through tonight, we'll hand over to the team.
And I'll just say, you were asking how does that listening, because the number one thing of being a community independent is trying to listen to your community genuinely, and then putting that, so we sort of look at a cycle in four into quadrants. Listening to the community, one, trying to formulate that into policy and what we take to Canberra. So what are we going to do to take that to Canberra? So we've done planning, we've done our 6 pillars, which reflect what we've been hearing and finding from the voices and from our own sort of research as well. And the 6 pillars, I'll just let you know, are climate and environment, integrity, health and well-being, and then the economy and small business, then there's local issues, and then what I'm calling sort of a catch-all social, cultural. The Voice falls under that, international affairs falls under that, immigration, refugees, all those types of things.
All sounds so exhausting. Is the job harder than you thought it would be? Or is it more exciting than you thought it would be? What's your impression of it so far?
A lot of people ask me, is it what you thought? I'm not really sure what I thought, but it is an incredible job. I do think it's an incredible privilege. I do think it's incredibly exciting. I remember sitting there one day with my advisor, we just sort of looked across at each other. There was something coming in, we went, oh my goodness, this is exciting, because you're right on the edge of everything, and we get to have a say. Like, we really get to have a say. So it is incredibly exciting. It is incredibly exhausting, particularly the time in Canberra, but it doesn't stop in Canberra. I keep saying there's two jobs in one, because one is the community work, and two, there's the policy parliamentary work. So they're not separate, but you're always on the go. You come back from one and you're straight into the other side of it all.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Of course, there are representatives who completely neglect the other side of it and don't really appear in their local electorate. Scott Morrison, I'm thinking of.
He's busy in ministries.
Yes. And giving talks about China, I noticed. China. So I think we can go to the floor now, and what we will do, we're down a microphone, aren't we, sadly? So what are we going to do about that? Oh, you've got one on the go, terrific. Well, what we'll do is he will set up the microphone here, and if anyone would like to approach with a question, they are welcome to do so. We do have some, Sophie, already that have already been submitted, and so perhaps I'll ask one of these to get you rolling. This is Robin, and by the way, if you do want to ask a question, I'd ask that you give us your name, and like I do on the radio. G'day, it's Karen from Narrabeen. That would be helpful. This is actually Robin from Narrabeen.
Robin from Narrabeen.
She is interested in the yes vote. She said, how do we best get the word out of McKellar about the importance of the yes vote? And she's obviously in for the future of the people, the land and the waters of Australia.
Thank you, Robin. I was very lucky last week, was it, or the week before in Parliament, to hear from the working group, the Uluru Statement of the Heart and Indigenous Western Parliament Working Group. That was incredible, and they answered a lot of questions. But I do think that one of the things they keep saying is the enshrinement of the voice to Parliament should not be political football. It was an invitation to the people of Australia, not to politicians, thanks very much, but it is an invitation to the people of Australia. So the role is, people have legitimate questions, fair enough, that's great. And so I see my role is just helping facilitate that information flow. And we have a lot of people who are very keen to help, with that information. But one of the things we want to do is hold panel events or a town hall event like that, so people can come along and hear from Indigenous people as well and their perspectives and answer questions. I think that's a really important way to do it.
Can I just say too that it's good for each of us to get it under our belts as well. I mean, I had a girlfriend of mine was over a couple of weekends ago. She said, I don't know about this voice thing, and I don't know what it means, and it's apartheid, and I was able to step her through it, and then send her an article, and she came around. So it is a personal responsibility as well, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, 100%. The invitation is to individual Australians. This is where do we want Australia to go. And I think that there's now these yarning sessions that they're setting up, so people can join a yarning session with the authors of the voice and listen to them and hear from them as well. And we'll be doing a similar thing in our own communities as well, trying to get out and spread the word and let people hear for themselves and ask their questions, because I think it's fair enough. It's new. How are we supposed to understand what this means for our country and for our constitution if we haven't had questions answered? So.
Yes, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, we're happy for you to ask a question. Yes, yep.
It's not going to break the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
G'day, Kelvin from Narrabeen. Pepper Evans seems to have raised its ugly head again. What are we going to do to get it dead, buried and cremated?
Closing, my husband's with the Surfrider Foundation, and that thing, I don't think there's a bed sheet, a bit of cardboard or a bit of curry iron in the whole place that hasn't been painted on and carted to a rally. We are over it. We have been doing this for years now, Sophie. The fact that it's popped up again is appalling. Do you think it's an ambit claim? Is it a real thing, or are they just going for insurance, a payout, do you think, the company?
Yes, I think the government, by settling it, was avoiding a big payout, and I think that they felt, this is not, that they need to go through the due process. I do think that Scott Morrison stepping into the ministry, I think that there was an undue process. So they're feeling I've spoken to the minister and the Prime Minister about it, and they're saying that they're going through proper process. I've let them know time and again that yes, that's good to know, but if there is a whiff that this is actually going to be resurrected, there's going to be a rebellion on the beaches. And the people who
we have that assurance from the Prime Minister.
We have both the opposition and the government both saying that they 100% oppose it, it won't go ahead, and here it is, it's resurrected. And actually the thing that did sort of shock me somewhat was that the head of PEP 11, David Breeze, said that he would like to see it resurrected, that he would like to, this to help out with the gas shortage or the gas crisis. So that's why, and sorry, to answer your question, there's a couple of things. One, I want everyone in Parliament in the country to know that this is not just NIMBYism. Yes, we don't want this in our backyard, 100%, we will never stand for it. But it's not just that, it's about gas exploration full stop. And we've been told in no uncertain terms, we've been told by the International Energy Agency and the IPCC that we can't have any new coal or gas or oil. We just, no new, that's the message. If we want to have a livable future, it's as simple as that, but the door has been left wide open for expansion and new oil and gas mines. And so that's why, one of the reasons why I went to the Liverpool Plains.
Narrabri. Yeah.
Well, went up there because similarly, probably even worse than what we're facing, they've been facing it for decades as well. The farmers were in tears, and the extraordinary thing, we both have these incredibly precious resources that are threatened, and it all seems to be about the company and the gas. So we've got our oceans, and we can't even consider there being oil mining off our coastline, just with the environmental damage that would cause in the methane. But also up there, that in the Liverpool Plains, that is some of the most fertile land in the entire world. That's why they flew us in a helicopter across it, so we could see what was going on up there. It is the food bowl of Australia and the world.
The danger to the basin, of course. Yeah.
Well, the artesian, yes, like the aquifers, and there's all this. And now they actually have real-time monitoring where they do show that the aquifers are connected, and those aquifers do flow into the Murray-Darling and Valsons Basin, so they will be affected. And so there's this whole issue around food security, water security, creating more methane, which is growing, it just goes on. And so those people up there are beside themselves as well, similarly. So it is giving solidarity to them there, but also was talking to them about how actually maybe you should stop waiting for the Nats to speak up on your behalf. Maybe it's time to get the community independent.
Well, and how do you assess the Greens fitting into this picture?
Well, they're 100% running the line. They want no new oil or gas. They've made that very clear. And look, I think it's. We've heard it. We've all heard it. We've all heard that there needs to be no new oil or gas. So actually, they're speaking common sense. We need to be able to move forward. And I think that's why there are more community independents in, because we have major problems ahead of us. We have significant, problems ahead of us. And what we don't want anymore is this adversarial type of conflict. We don't want fighting anymore. We actually want our politicians to come up with solutions. And that means facing the facts as well. And the facts are there can be no new oil or gas. So we somehow have to come to some sort of agreement, negotiation. So it's going to be an interesting time now that the safeguard mechanism is coming up for debate this month.
Exactly. What we might do, Sheila said that she's quite happy to come to you where you live for a question. So perhaps we'll start here and we'll take you next. Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a microphone here, so I'm Guy from Bayview. Lovely to see you here, Sophie. I've just got a question. You talked about the House of Reps independence. I was just wondering how much interaction you have with the Senate independents, and particularly 3 sort of points. One, David Pocock, who's obviously been the key guy today. What difference is it going to make with Lydia Thorpe leaving the Greens? Is that going to influence matters? And also Jackie Landy. I mean, she's an amazing woman, very direct. I've also seen the Wolf Review version with Amanda Bishop. And I'm interested to know, have you had much interaction with
You want all the gossip, don't you? That's what you're here for. And so are we.
Yes. So we have when we're down in Canberra, we have a weekly crossbench meeting. So one week it'll just be with the House of Reps, so we can sort of hear what each other is doing, get on the same page. Okay, you're doing that, I've got this. Who's doing what? It's really good, and what legislation is coming up. So just helping each other get across the board with what's happening. But every second week we have that with the Senate as well, the Senate crossbenches, so that again we can try and work what's going on in the Senate. We need to know what's going on there. David Pocock, there's a lot of interaction with David Pocock particularly, and when I've been briefing, personally I've briefed all the crossbench, including the senators, on the junk food regulations that we want to bring in, and also on the integrity bill. And so Jackie Lambie and the others, they're there, even Pauline Hanson and her crew come along to those things. So it's quite good. So there are issues that we will connect on and that we will agree on. A lot of it is around integrity. So it's quite interesting. Jackie Lambie is very direct.
There you go.
Take that. No, but she's great. Whoa, she's a pocket rocket. I mean, some of the things, of course. There's been a couple of things on Twitter that, oh, gee, Jackie, I thought you were going well, but that's a bit out of hand. But regardless, it is about trying to come together on things that we agree with, and a lot of that around integrity, on transparency, on holding the government to account. It's up to all of us to try and work together to do the best that we can. So yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a collaboration as well with David. David's got very similar values to a lot of the crossbench teals.
And Goswee.
Just
He
on
was a
Lydia
Brumby.
Thorpe, do you think?
Oh, well, Lydia Thorpe.
Oh, look, I don't actually know how that will affect. That's in the Senate, but I don't have my sense is it won't affect what goes on too much in the Senate.
Here.
Hello everyone, I'm Margaret. I'm from everywhere because I run a national smoke-free organisation fighting against tobacco and now against vaping. First question is very local. Downstairs there's a room with 90 poker machines. It's 75% enclosed, but it's known as unenclosed, and the workers have to go in there. This is a state issue, but I'm just telling you because it's local, because it's right here. And the workers go in there, deliver drinks and snacks, and COVID clean, and they have to suck in the toxins from 90 machines in one room. A federal issue though is let's raise the age for tobacco use. Nicotine is more addictive than heroin, and yet our young people are still taking it up. They're taking up vaping when it's full of nicotine.
Do you have a question for Sophie? You're being a bit of a stump speech there, madam.
Thank you. So what can you do about raising the age for smoking and vaping of nicotine?
Thank you. That's a great question. I honestly, I haven't considered the raising the age issue before, but I have been speaking out on vaping because I do think vaping is the new tobacco. We've got the old tobacco, and recently there was the 10-year anniversary of the introduction of the plain packaging laws in this country, and I used that to segue pretty quickly into, okay, now we've got our next issue to deal with, and that's vaping, because our children are now being targeted by by vaping, and a lot of those vaping companies have been taken over by tobacco companies. And what's happening is they're easily accessible, they're in colourful packages, they're very appealing, they're in lolly flavours, and now it's kind of, they're being targeted as well on their social media. So there's not the regulations that are needed. And actually I think the government is pretty keen to move forward on this as well, and there's a lot of support on the crossbench. Kate Cheney recently moved a motion to have greater regulation around vaping. What is able to come into this country shouldn't be sold. And the other problem is it's been sold in petrol stations and shops right near where our children catch the bus and trains to school. You know, it's very accessible, and 80% of children said it's very easy to access, and it's exploding. So it's, and like you said, even though a lot of them are labelled nicotine free, a lot of them have nicotine in them regardless. So it's very, very...
So that's a live issue at the moment. I guess there's one area of intersectionality here, Sophie, and I heard that you were chatting a little earlier with a school teacher, and that is the effect of mental health of our young people, and you know, the effect of climate change on mental health. Is there anything afoot there that do you think that there has to be more attention for kids who are suffering stress and anxiety because of climate change? I mean, if there are achievements in climate change, that doesn't quite do it either, does it?
No, because it's been a long burn, right? It's been a very long burn, and you know, children have had to step up themselves because there was a lack of leadership nationally. For many years, children felt the need to, students step up and have school strike for climate change. They were the ones that felt that they needed to act, and that came out of a sense of desperation. And that climate anxiety, climate depression comes, I've heard, not so much from being aware that there's this looming problem, but the fact that our leaders weren't doing anything about it. That's where the distress, the really deep distress comes in, that sense of helplessness, that nobody's acting on this, we know it's coming. So that's where a lot of that comes in, and I'm hoping, one of the things we really wanted to do, and I know that this isn't a direct kind of way to manage it, but we are thinking about children's mental health and youth mental health as well, because that is another, that's probably on that list you've got there. It is another really big issue for people in this community and across Australia. But what we were hoping is in the campaign is that sense of helplessness. We need to let young people know that actually this democracy belongs to them as well, that they absolutely deserve to be heard, that this is, we're creating, we as the politicians and what society are creating their future, so they deserve to have a voice as well.
What about lowering the voting age? I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's the thing, a lot of young people do have.
Yes.
I don't know exactly.
If they're old enough to tend to be locked up in jail, maybe they should be able to vote.
Hear that?
Yeah.
Yes. So young people.
Well, there's a young person over there. Let's ask.
Thank you for coming.
I'm Sophie. Last year, I'm Patty and I'm from Avalon. And last year, Andrew Wilkie brought to the table the coal testing scam, talking about how much of our coal is not being tested correctly, and there's a whole scam into it. And we're one of the largest coal exporters in the world. And I just want to know if you're planning to do anything and pressure the government to do an inquiry into that, which is what I think Andrew Wilkie is trying to do.
Yes, 100%. And great question. So that's where this lack of transparency, like when we think about holding government to account, transparency is absolutely key. And I think the problem was those reports were not transparent for a long while. So finding out what their report, actually there was a whistleblower. There was a whistleblower that release that information. So the other, I'll get to, sorry, answer your question, but there is a really important piece around whistleblower protections as well. That's huge. And this year as well, we wanted that to come in with the National Anti-Corruption Commission, so we were pushing for that. The government said absolutely not, but we are going to strengthen whistleblower protections through the public interest and so that will be pushed. That's a very big issue for the crossbench, and I think the government's on board with that, but we'll see what happens, and we keep pushing for more. But yes, so I think I seconded, or I spoke on that, or seconded Andrew Wilkie's speech in Parliament for that. But it is quite shocking that the coal companies have been misleading both their buyers and Australians by saying that their coal is of higher quality than what it actually is. It's actually, and so it's when it burns with greater emissions than what is being reported. So that's incredibly misleading. Thank you, hold me to account on that one. But there is one thing I will say, that there are so many issues that come up, is that actually it's really wonderful having a larger crossbench, because you've got climate. There's about 70 different things you could be working on for climate. But if we each take one of them and focus on it and push hard on it. So Andrew Wilkie, like you said, he's taking the lead on that one. Yeah, and I'll definitely be supporting.
Sophie, I have a question here that was submitted a little earlier, and this is from Vanessa in French's Forest. What do you think of the changes to the proposed super changes? They'll be taken to the next election, won't they?
So it'll be taken to the next election, and apparently they're going to vote on it. But this has all come in very recently, so I know what you know. So I've been reading it in the newspapers as you've been reading it in the newspapers. So where I said there's a lot of collaboration, quite often things like this will just be sprung on us, like, oh, right, now they're making changes to super, all right. But we're reading about it in the newspaper at the same time. We're being rung up by the journalists saying, what's your position? So we do need time to think about these things. The government obviously is looking ways to reduce that enormous debt that we have, and in reasonable ways. And but the other thing is there's been certain rules for super for a very long while, so we need to be cautious about what happens. Having said that, this is a change that will affect 0.5% of the population of people who have over $3 million in their super fund. And they will still be receiving, from what the government has said just this afternoon, will continue to have the tax concession up to the $3 million, and then there will be 30% tax rate after that. So that is still a tax concession regardless. It's still less than the 45%.
Yeah. 15 to 30. Yes. I mean, actually, this brings me to an interesting point. If anyone's got another question, I think we might have time for one more. The point I was going to ask you about is, and as you say, there are so many issues that come up. You must really have to, as you say, target which ones you're going to go for. And so, how do you do that?
That's a really good question too. So as I said earlier on, we have our 6 pillars, and we really know that we need to stay focused on what are the top issues that are important to this electorate. Otherwise, you get pulled in all sorts of directions and you lose focus. And to be effective, we need to sort of drive a particular issue. So we've looked at the issues under each of those pillars, and on climate change, there's something that I feel passionate about. So actually, I didn't answer this fully previously. When you ask about how we're collaborating with the crossbench, we will actually get together. We have many similar values, and get together and talk about, I feel really passionate about this, because there's no reason that we should all be working on the absolute same thing. It's just a waste of resources. Or find out who has a similar interest in that, and you can work together. So when it comes to climate, there's many different issues.
I can just imagine that room full of all of you, and no one getting a word in. Talkers.
No, it's actually really, really collaborative. It is incredible. There are incredible women, and everyone sort of communicates with each other. Everyone is very respectful, and it's not like everyone tries to do, okay, I'm not bagging that because I want it, you can't have it. It's like, okay, let's work out, or maybe I do this, so that's slightly different.
Yes, Paul.
Hi, Paul from Newport. Just on the super question, and tax questions generally, you can't be expected to be across the detail of Australia's superannuation system as quite arcane, and when measures are announced, they can have knock-on effects. But using that as a little bit of a case study, how will you go about becoming informed on that? Because you've got to vote along with everyone else on this. And yeah, is there a go-to person for you in either your staff or in that collaborative group you described a minute ago that'll help give you an informed view on this?
Yes, thank you. And similarly, any question that comes, there's a lot of issues that I need to get a lot of information on and you need to hear. So there was also, apart from the superannuation, there was the industrial relation reforms as well. And that as well, that was sort of sprung on us the night before. That was the most enormous piece of legislation, and it came out the night before. So then we were scrambling to try and, one, you need to try and talk to your community. Who's this going to affect? Talk to those stakeholders. What do they think about this? What do the peak bodies think about this from all sorts of angles as well? Try and talk to the other crossbenchers. Try and talk to both sides, both major parties. Who's standing for what? So you really do have to try and glean a whole lot of information in a very rapid space of time, which is, so it's a really huge task. So as I said, it's very difficult when the journalist brings you up and says, what's your position on the superannuation, because you just cannot. Like, I'm just reading about it in the newspaper too. But so we will try and take our time and listen and try and work out what actually,
There seem to be, obviously there's a lot of moving parts, in the Parliament. Do you think that it is a dynamic place? Is it a place that, takes itself seriously? Is it a place that kind of, that needs reform? I mean, is it a place that, some people are just along for the ride? How do you characterise it as an institution?
I actually do think people do have a good time. I think it's very hard, but I think I'm just maybe thinking about the crossbench, but we definitely talk and have a bit of a laugh together.
No,
but
I mean as an effective body, as a place that gets things done. Is it an efficient organisation generally, if you look at it in total?
I don't think it has today, and I'm hoping that it's more constructive and more effective now that we've got a beating
Because that's what I mentioned, because obviously it's not the only model for democracy. I mean, there are some really, deep sort of structural changes that could be made to representation that we know, like the Swiss model or whatever it might be. If you were to sort of have your druthers, if you were going to reform it in a big way, what would you think? What would you do?
Well, I think just answering your first question, I do think when it's a very adversarial sort of situation where it's just trying to win the argument rather than find solutions, I don't think it's very effective. So actually the Swiss model, and I first heard about this with my Swiss French, because it's really amazing. We have referendums on votes on just about everything, from from your garbage bins right up, and that's what the Voices tries to achieve as well, that you're allowed to have those conversations, that you sit down with your friend, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? And and you can actually discuss it at the dinner table, whereas we in Australia, you can't talk religion, politics or money. And so one of the things that we tried to do during our campaign was give people permission to talk politics again. Not saying it's politics, but you are allowed to talk about what's important to you. You are allowed to have respectful conversations and just, let people know. In terms of different models, yes, I think the Swiss model is probably pretty good, but also we've been discussing other things like on very vexed issues, like the abortion debate in Ireland, of all places. They do things deliberative democracy, so you have citizens' juries, so that, and sorry,
not a fan?
No democracy there. Well, anyway, maybe I'll give a different issue. Is that, so say something with donation reform, political donations, is that, maybe the parties and politicians shouldn't be making decisions about that. Maybe it's something that, it's the people's democracy, maybe they should be having a say in what actually are the rules around political donations and donation reform and things like that. So that was one sort of concept, maybe we have a citizen jury where you select randomly, like a jury, 75 people who then hear all sides and commit to a certain amount of time so that they can get across the issues really coherently and then come up with the solutions. So that's a powerful thing. And we were also just discussing another really vexed issue is housing affordability. And that's something that neither major party wants to touch. So, you know, maybe that's something as a difficult issue people can get involved in.
There's there are a lot of really interesting ways to go about things, I guess, and I think in some ways Australia can be quite slow, quite moribund, but we're getting there, don't you?
Hopefully we're waking up.
Would you please thank our wonderful all the best, Sophie. When are you back in Canberra?
Well, on Monday, and I think actually there might be some people coming down as well because I'm introducing the Ending Jobs for Mates bill, which is the Quality and Transparent Public Appointments 2023 bill. The National Anti-Corruption Commission was just a start. That's sort of, you know, a safety net underneath, but we actually need to build integrity into our system. And that means being able to trust the appointments that are made. I mean, we've seen the Administrative Appeals Tribunal having to be abolished. We've got the Climate Change Authority has fossil fuel executives on it. And, you know, it just goes on, and we keep hearing about Farrell as well. Everybody's fingering every pie. So anyway, that's what we're up to on Monday.
All right, well, we should watch out for you. I mean, you obviously have so much to get across, and you sound like you're amazingly across so much. So we thank you very much for the last 200 days, and we wish you all the best for the next 2,000. Any questions that you didn't get to ask this evening, if you can direct them to the team over there, and they'll feed them back and we'll get an answer for you. Thanks once again for coming along and taking part. It's fabulous to see you and to go forth and multiply. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Welcome. Because it's your democracy. Thank you.
Before we lose you, we just want to say just a few closing moments and we'll let you on. So that was an amazing, powerful hour. There's never enough time. So thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Sophie. And as Wendy mentioned, there's plenty of questions that I know that you all had or submitted in advance or wanted to ask tonight. So the commitment is from Sophie and her team is to collate some responses to that. So they will not be lost, and we definitely welcome them. A few more things that are here for you. There's some free t-shirts from Voices of McKellar that we'd love everybody to be wearing, so please help yourself. There is the survey report that she mentioned, hot off the presses. So the good news about this is that this is probably what we're going to ask you about in 6 months. Exactly. So that's amazing. And then there's also on our website, Voices of McKellar, Sophie and her team have been insanely busy. So this doesn't even touch the surface of what we found out when a couple of weeks ago we entertained the idea of publishing a report card. So we wanted to definitely follow up on what the community in the Voices of McKellar kitchen table conversations, there was a top 20 list, just like the survey produced. There was a top 20 list that came out of the community, and we basically submitted those top 20 to just be in review and what activities have been happening as a result on those topics. There is a boatload of activity that we would like to really acknowledge that with the help of Sophie's team we were able to publish, and that's available if you want to actually get more informed about what has been happening to date before the next slew of updates and reports come out as a result of the Voices of McKellar survey response. So thank you again to everyone. Have a good evening. The bar is opening. If you want to stick around and work, please feel free.